Congresswoman Maxine Dexter here, coming to you from El Salvador. I flew here last night with 3 of my colleagues to demand that Kilmar Abrego Garcia be released. He is being held in violation of a Supreme Court order expressly telling the Trump administration to effectuate and facilitate his coming home. That is being ignored. This is not just a threat to all people in the United States who could be illegally abducted, detained, and transported internationally against their will. But it is a fact that our president does not recognize the branches of government and the balances of power. This is what we all have been calling a constitutional crisis, yet it is more severe than anything we've seen. We cannot stay silent. We must stay loud. I am here because I refuse to wait for something to happen. We are here to release Kilmar Abrego Garcia.
Yeah, we gotta talk about Democrats because, as you guys may have heard, and if you didn't, the Democrats on your screen have all gone to El Salvador. Robert Garcia of Cali, Maxwell Frost of Florida, Yasmin Ansari of Arizona, and Maxine Dexter, who was the lady you just saw in that clip, of Oregon. They have all taken a trip to El Salvador to go and try to save this illegal, because that's what they're supposed to do. Anyway, I got a lot I want to talk about with this whole situation. One thing is Jesse Waters actually went to Maryland, which is where this guy was picked up at, and before he was deported back to his home country. And he walked the streets of Maryland and just asked people how they felt about an MS-13 gang member being deported. And you might be surprised. Let's dive in.
So there's this illegal immigrant. He was living in Maryland, designated MS-13 terrorist, and Donald Trump deported him. How does that make you feel?
I feel safer.
He gotta go. He gotta go.
Need to go. I mean, that's it.
But he was a father.
But he's still a terrorist.
Okay. I mean, but there's children living without fathers now.
He should have picked the tree, so he picked to be a terrorist instead of worrying about his children.
The Democrats, they want him back. They say he was wrongfully deported. He has a wife and a kid who's a citizen. They're calling this a national emergency. Is this a national emergency?
I wouldn't call it national emergency. We got more things going on.
We have more things, more fish to fry.
I just found out about it, so I don't think so. What kind of national emergency? For what? What is an emergency for?
Ain't no national emergency, no.
He was accused of hitting his wife twice and was a suspected human smuggler. Was he wrongfully deported?
No, he need to go.
If he's a smuggler, yeah, he needs to be deported.
It's better to be safe than sorry.
Your senator here, Chris Van Hollen, he flew to El Salvador where this guy was deported. He met with them, had lunch with them, had margaritas on the table. What's up with your senator?
I have no idea, but I do believe that was a waste of taxpayer dollars.
Margaritas.
You agreeing with somebody whipping their wife, terrorizing where you live, then you don't need to live here either.
Senator Van Hollen, you need to come see me, Mr. Coley, because you doing like that. You need to take care of home before you go to other states.
He went to El Salvador.
Oh, that's another country, excuse me.
What has Senator Chris Van Hollen ever done for you?
Nothing.
Nothing.
For me, nothing.
Nothing that I know of.
He ain't do me. I can admit that.
I've never even heard of this person.
Do you want Kilmar Abrego Garcia, this quote-unquote Maryland dad, living back in Maryland?
No. No.
No.
No.
Not if he's doing trafficking, no.
Why the want somebody like that back? No.
What is your message to the Democrats who really want him back in your community?
Why would you want that in my community? Bring it to your community and see how long you like it up there.
Leave him, or y'all go over there with him.
You're focused on the wrong thing.
If they illegal coming over here, send them back.
So the people of Maryland have spoken. Send them back. You know, and if you got a problem with it, then move down to El Salvador with him. Go live with the guy, okay? And Democrats were absolutely humiliated because upon arriving in El Salvador, they got this message.
What do you know? Is there any chance you'll be meeting with Abrego Garcia while you're there? Well, we're actually about to do a press conference to speak a little bit about this, but we got word at the embassy that our request has been denied by the government here locally. They say it's because we're not here on an official capacity. This is part of the reason why Representative Robert Garcia and I sent a letter to Chairman Comer of the Oversight Committee asking for this to be an official CODEL. But we're not giving up. We're going to continue. We have more meetings scheduled for the rest of the day. But part of this, too, is making sure that we keep the conversation alive. We're building off of the trip of Senator Van Hollen, and we're not the first members here, and we're not going to be the last.
Excuse me, flew all that way just to be denied. Now, an interesting question would be, where were all of these folks when North Carolina was underwater? You know, when all of the red counties in North Carolina, in western North Carolina, were underwater. I didn't see all of these senators or congressmen and women flying to North Carolina to check on the citizens of North Carolina. I didn't see them, but of course not, because it's not about caring about the American citizens. It's all about the optics. It's all about putting on a show, and that was a perfect example of it, because none of these folks flew to North Carolina, not a single soul, not one. And I said that when it happened. I was like, guys, I feel bad about this. Like this doesn't look right. The Biden administration is awfully quiet. Democrats are really quiet. And when you look at the map of North Carolina, a lot of the counties that are underwater are all red counties. They vote red, and they ignored them. And I was like, don't be surprised if North Carolina actually goes blue. Now, it didn't. But I saw what they were trying to do. They were hoping that because that part of the state was underwater and they weren't giving them any attention or any assistance, that they just wouldn't vote, or they wouldn't be around to vote, if you know what I mean. Which, that is just absolutely disgusting, but that's the Democrat Party. That is the Democrat Party. Another key thing about this entire situation is that, and you heard him speak about it there, their trip to be paid for from our tax dollars, it got denied. Yeah. No tax dollars spent to fly them to El Salvador. That's on their own dime.
You also, as chairman, have some duties and responsibilities, and that is signing off on travel for members of Congress who maybe want to go to El Salvador to meet with people who have been deported. What's your take on this? What are you going to do with this?
Well, I had two members of the House Oversight Committee, Garcia from California and Frost from Florida, and they sat there silent during the entire Biden investigation, during the entire investigation of Border Patrol and Mayorkas that we had in the Oversight Committee. If anything, they were obstructive. They weren't concerned. They showed no concern for the lack of our national security or the violation of our southern border security laws. But then this one person that the liberal media picked up on that was deported to El Salvador, they went crazy before it came out that he was actually an MS-13 gang member, and they wanted me to authorize funding at my committee's expense to send them down to El Salvador and meet with this person for a photo op and to have margaritas and enjoy the sunny weather. And I obviously denied their request. We're not going to spend a penny of taxpayer dollars for liberal Democrats to continue their stunts to try to appease the radical left-wing base when the American people spoke loud and clear on Election Day. They want our southern border secured, and they want criminal illegals deported, and that's exactly what Donald Trump's doing.
1,000%. We don't need to be spending any tax dollars on this foolishness. And it's also quite interesting. I came across this clip of Maxwell Frost, one of the Democrats who flew to El Salvador. It's interesting how these Democrats are like the biggest. I just got to play this clip. It is absolutely hilarious. Will Cain calling out Maxwell Frost on his Supreme Court stance. It's quite interesting.
July 1st of 2024, you posted on your website the following. It's up right now if anyone wants to go to your website. Our country and the world will now recognize this day as the day the Supreme Court of the United States effectively became an illegitimate, politically corrupt arm of the conservative right wing. That's when the Supreme Court of the United States ruled that Donald Trump had immunity from prosecution. And on that day 10 months ago, you called the Supreme Court of the United States illegitimate. Here today, all of a sudden, you seem to be very dedicated, principled, in fact, to the simple rules of law, due process, and legitimacy of the court.
I still hold that the Supreme Court is very much skewed to the right and that there is corruption on the court. I do hold that today. But the fact that the court is so skewed to the right, and even then, they're still saying a complete decision, unanimous decision, that he needs to be brought home, shows that this shouldn't be a partisan issue. It should be a thing that Democrats, Republicans, everybody are coming behind. Bring the guy home so he can go through due process. That is what the Supreme Court, the conservative-leaning Supreme Court.
So on one hand, they're illegitimate, but then on the other hand, their rulings are legitimate. So when you disagree, they're illegitimate, but when you agree, then they're completely legitimate. What a load of goodness gracious, I almost cursed. What a load of crap, right? What a load of crap. And I love that Will Cain called him out on the nonsense, but I also want to leave you guys with a tidbit of great news as well, and it's this.
All right, let's get to these younger voters now, because this is interesting. Young voters have been shifting to the right. There's new insight in the Yale University youth poll. Voters 18 through 21 in this poll asked who they'd support in the midterms in 26, and the Republican candidate led by a margin of 11.7.
Voters 18 to 21. Republicans lead by almost 12 points among that young group of voters. Amazing. Amazing, especially when you consider the backdrop of everything, right? Mainstream media demonizing anything and everything Trump and Republicans do at every single turn. I mean, you turn on, the news and it's just a nonstop stream of Trump derangement. So when you have that kind of backdrop and you're still getting young voters who typically vote Democrat, when you're early in your life, you typically are a Democrat. And as you get older and you got to pay taxes and everything else, and you realize how the world actually works, you kind of shift Republican. But if you're already getting those young folks coming out as Republican that heavy, I think that really spells doom for the Democrat Party. That's some really bad news for the Democrat Party, especially these are children that are like just getting out of the school system, right? Possibly, actually, these are college students, right? So 18 to 21, and we know how indoctrinating those campuses are. So even with all of that, the indoctrination from the campuses and the schools and everything else, and you turn on mainstream media and it's just a nonstop stream of TDS, and still it's a Republican plus almost 12. I think that's some amazing news, guys. That's some amazing news, and I hope we keep that up. And I don't see why we wouldn't. But as always, thanks for tuning in. Let me know your thoughts and your opinions on this. Y'all stay safe out there. Peace and love. I'm out.